Hi, it's Sarah here. I'm here with Teya. We are final year language students following the module Language and Power in the Modern Languages Department. We're here to present some research and findings for our project about institutional discourse. So first I will hand over to Teya, who's going to tell you what our module is and why we're here.
Hi everyone. So the aim of the module was to familiarise students with the ability to analyse persuasive texts such as newspapers and political speeches that we hear every day, and to provide the techniques for revealing a text's underlying bias, and to examine the power relations and the effect this has on language. From this, it was aimed that we would be able to understand the power of language and how it moves emotions and can change opinions. A variety of topics were covered in this module that were very interesting, that included the discourse of institutions, language and gender, miscommunication, and language and politics.
So we found this module very interesting in relation to the institutional discourse section that we studied. Therefore, we wanted to explore this further in relation to higher education and higher education at Reading as students here. What we learnt was extremely interesting from this perspective. We wanted to use this opportunity to discuss and share it on a larger scale, hence why we are here today. And we've chosen this as the topic of our show on Junction 11. We want to discuss what discourse means in relation to universities, and therefore we've created a survey which we're going to discuss with you today. We've distributed it to students at the University of Reading across the years, and therefore we're going to open a discussion in the studio and its relevance to you as Reading students.
So to start, let's clarify what discourse actually means. When we talk about discourse, we are referring to the language that provides the knowledge and terminology and constructs the topic itself. This is directly related to institutions because they are linked to power and knowledge. And so the discourse used serves the interest of certain powerful groups within those institutions. It facilitates the knowledge and regulates the power relations by its members. Therefore, institutions and power are clearly intertwined, and so this relates to the goals of the discourse used.
So what is an example of institutional discourse? You probably don't realise it, but in your everyday life, you are part of this discourse. For example, in a university, the Vice-Chancellor and the speeches he makes to students, this is institutional discourse, and you are part of this. That's why we're on the radio today, because we want to share with you how it's directly related to you, this relationship between language and power, and how it's used in universities, especially as they've changed a lot over the years, as Teya will talk to you about now.
Yes, so as we all know, universities have changed a lot over the last few decades and increased in numbers greatly. These changes were triggered by the reforms made by Thatcher in the 1980s, and these reforms were put in place to make institutions such as higher education more entrepreneurial and attuned to the world of business. This continued through to the 1990s and created what is now known as enterprise culture. And this is where universities such as University of Reading are encouraged to behave in an entrepreneurial manner and to emphasise these qualities within the degrees themselves. One of the ways this has been most obvious is through the choice of discourse that these universities use. For example, you now see terms relating to business to have a larger prominence in day-to-day university language that you see.
Yeah, this change that Teya has just mentioned is what we're interested in discussing in today's programme. It's where all our research has been based, because we want to know whether current students, like you guys listening, have noticed this phenomenon in their university experience. This is where you come in. We want you to get in touch with us here at Junction 11 via the Facebook page, the Twitter page, or via text, which you text Junction 11 to 07766404142, and let us know what you think. If you think the way that you're spoken to as a student has changed, do you think enterprise culture is important, and do you think universities are acting in line with it? It's at this point we'd like to invite our guest, Federico Faloppa, who is our module convener, to talk to us about what he thinks and whether he thinks lecturers have noticed this change as well. So, Federico, over to you.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to this program. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Teya. As you can hear from my accent, I'm an Italian guy. I'm a lecturer at the Modern Languages Department, and I'm the convener of this Language and Power module. I think that this survey and this investigation by Teya and Sarah is very interesting, it's very important, because it reveals that, something has changed in the public discourse in higher education in the last 30 years. Well, what do I think as a lecturer? How much we had to talk about this? I don't know, a couple of hours? No, a couple of minutes. Yeah. No, as a lecturer, I think that this discourse has influenced our views on university and higher education. I think the key words and key terms that change in time. So from knowledge, education, and teaching, these were the priorities in the past. We move to other priorities, maybe that are more related to entrepreneurship discourse in society. Is it better or good? Well, we open the discussion here. We want you to tell us what you think about this, and please do it, because the discussion is on, and we would be happy to take your opinions on board. So thanks a lot, and I just asked Sarah and Teya to keep on talking about the project, and I'm still here, so I'll enjoy your conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come back for your opinion again later. For now, we're going to go back to our study that we've done on enterprise culture and why we were keen to investigate this further. We wanted, in particular, to see whether universities use language relating to enterprise culture to attract prospective students. Therefore, our research started by looking at the prospectuses that universities use across the country and the language used within them. We were actually quite surprised when we were looking at them, because we found that most examples use terms that traditionally you find in business, in commerce, not in universities. For example, investment, value for money, innovation. These all came up in the prospectuses we looked at, which was actually quite surprising. Teya, what do you think?
Well, having seen this, we were interested to know whether these concepts were actually related to what students wanted. Are we interested in innovation? Are we interested in business? Is that what we're looking for as students? Because of this, we decided to make a survey and send it out to our fellow students here at University of Reading. And this survey consisted of various different questions to get an idea of the different reasons that played an important factor when choosing the university. For example, the first question included the extracts from the prospectuses that we read, and they all emphasised different qualities, and that then the participants could select the one that they liked the most. Other questions related to why students chose the University of Reading specifically, and whether the literature distributed affected their decision. A final question asked students to pick from a list their 5 most important factors, and these included words such as business, enterprise, employability, campus, research, teaching, all of which we will go on to explain later what we found. So I'll pass you to Sarah, who will explain more.
Yeah, now we'll get on to the bit where we actually tell you what our results are, rather than just telling you what we've done. So the main thing that came out of the reasons people chose Reading, so while you guys listening today chose Reading, it was overwhelmingly concentrated on the university's campus, its location in the UK, just the feel on open days, the way Reading felt physically. This is key because it's not something that universities can change. It's something that's inherent in Reading. They can't manipulate this in their literature. This gives power to the students, which meant that the universities have to therefore emphasise other areas. But another thing that came out of our research was that overall ranking was important throughout the process. This encompasses everything. This encompasses everything that students want from a university in a ranking. Therefore, it shows that they want everything they can get. With the amount that students are paying now, they need an across-the-board experience, paying so much money.
But on the other hand, elements of business and industry were important, but we noticed that these were mainly highlighted from those who study business at the university, and there were significantly less responses from humanities students who prioritised teaching excellence, for example, and student feedback. But the fact that there are more business students in themselves nowadays shows that there are that there is this enterprise culture, because 30 years ago there weren't so many business related degrees. Obviously there were some, but not to the same extent there are now. And I think that shows how higher education has tried to bring in this element of business and commerce within the higher education system itself.
Yes, so another element, just like what Teya was saying, that came out was the opposite, was that an element we thought was going to be quite popular in the results, that being the element of value for money, did not actually come up as that important to students. I mean, we've thought about this since, we've spoken about it, and we think it might be subconscious that they do want value for money, but they don't like to be spoken to like customers. I mean, this is, again, where we want you to tell us what you think, but do you want to get value for money for your degree, or is, like the other things that we've spoken about, the ranking, the location, is that more important than your value for money because you want to be valued on an intellectual level, not on a value for money level?
So looking at Reading specifically, what did you like about coming to Reading? We'd love to know if it was the Henley Business School and its famed reputation that made Reading your choice, or was it more the traditional elements such as its famous research that made you want to come here? Please, again, send us a message on Facebook, on the Twitter account, or text in to 077 66 40 4142. We'd love to let you know your views.
We're hoping that you getting in touch is going to show all the different varied student opinions out there, because we don't think it's as clear-cut as there being one answer whether enterprise culture has changed or not changed. Me and Teya have spoken about this, and that's why we want to know what you think. Because we think it's not, like I said, it's not that clear-cut. There are so many different degrees. There are so many different students going to university. So obviously these universities are being forced to respond to the different needs. Obviously teaching is always going to be important, lifestyle, general student experience, but when you're paying £9,000 a year, you need extras like the emphasis on business to give your university an edge. Is this what you think? Do you agree? As Teya said, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you.
So now that we've shared our results with you, and that actually we found that business wasn't the highest ranking thing, but it was a significant element to some people, we would love to know what your thoughts are and create a general discussion on the topic as a whole, not just our particular research project. So when choosing universities, did you consider teaching excellence and the ranking of the university? As we've said, ranking seems to be an important element because it covers everything. You have a higher ranking university, you're going to get links to industry by having a higher ranking university anyway. Or was it that business and industry itself were the factors because of increased fees and the higher number of students? You need to have that element that secures a job, secures a career for you. So we'd love to, as we said, we'd love for you to get in touch and find out your views. But while we're waiting, I will ask Sarah what your views are.
Okay, so this is just me talking as a student, like any one of you, why I came to university, why I came to Reading. As we said at the beginning, we're both language students, so I study French and Italian. The most important thing for me when I came to university was to learn a language and the fantastic opportunity to go on a year abroad. So for me, it was to learn a language. I came for the academia here, the teaching excellence. For me, it wouldn't have made a difference with the £3,000 or the £9,000 tuition fees, because at the end of the day, I wanted to learn a language. Teya, are you similar? Do you think the same? Or?
I'm similar to an extent. I appreciate the academic level, and that is why I came to university. I enjoy learning, and I wanted to broaden my knowledge and and further my language knowledge. However, I would say that not value for money exactly, but sort of it was a means to an end to an extent. If it was to help with my future to get certain jobs, and I have to say, if I was paying £9,000 a year, I would want to have all of the boxes ticked, and I would want to have a definite career at the end of it. So for me, that would be an important element, would be having that. And how does this compare with the situation in Italy, Federico? Do you find people have reasons of coming to the university that are different to maybe England?
Well, that's a big question. But before before trying to answer to that question, let me just say something about what you said about your survey and your project. Well, we got something very important here, because every year, every time we ask ourselves, what could we do to improve the marketing strategies, to improve, how to promote our courses, our modules, our programs. Shall we underline the fact that we got a value for money element? Shall we underline the fact that we give you skills, to use, in the job market? Or maybe we should still underline the fact that this is the only time you got in your life to get a good education, to spend time in studying and reading what you really like, and to get some knowledge, knowledge that is not particularly useful sometimes, but makes you open your mind and understand the world outside the university. So that's a big question, that's a big dilemma, in my opinion. And I think that, from your survey, we got something new here, because we think as lecturers, as people working in the university, members of staff, that we need to improve our marketing strategies. We need to attract students on the basis of value for money elements of or discourse, but maybe our students are still more interested in a good education, in a good knowledge, in a sound knowledge, and in being in touch with people that are reliable lecturers, reliable intellectuals, and maybe they want to have a sort of intellectual experience, not just something that they can spend on the job market. So that's a big question, but I think you find a sort of, not an answer, but you find your own opinion, and also the people you interview, told you, look, maybe, we should need a more balanced kind of discourse here, because, entrepreneurship discourse is not the only one that matters. Maybe, since we are still in higher education, in this kind of context, maybe cultural elements and knowledge are still as important as other elements. And so I think we could open a debate, a discussion here, and we've been doing it here. We've been doing this for the last 25 minutes. So please get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions, to get your feedback, to get your comments. And what was the question? The Italian situation. Well, that would be another program, I guess. Yeah. But probably in Italy is a bit different, because universities are still funded and supported by the state, by the government, so they don't need to look for customers yet, but they still can focus on knowledge and as I said, higher education, so other kinds of keywords and key terms. But we can compare the situation, the Italian situation, to the UK situation, but I think everything is changing very quickly, also in Italy. But what is important is your feeling as students, and also our feelings as people that work in this institution, for the benefit of this institution and for the benefit of our students.
Yeah, I think it's important we don't lose what a university is. I think that we still want to have that, but equally incorporate some of the newer elements, perhaps.
At this point, I just want to say thank you, because we've just had one of our first shout-outs. This is a message from Catherine saying, does the town matter when coming to university? Which is something me and Teya were just talking about our opinions, which we didn't actually mention. In response, I think, as I said before, in our research, it came back that the location was the most important thing for Reading students. Obviously, I wouldn't have come here if I didn't like Reading, if I didn't want to be here. I don't know how you feel, Teya, but this is important. Yes, it does matter.
I think it matters. I think if you're going to be at a place for a number of years, you want to be able to enjoy the town if possible. Or even having access to other towns that you like more. So, for example, I know in our survey there were quite a few people that said they chose Reading because it was close to London, and that was an important element for them. I think the town is something that people that should consider when they're looking at universities. Seems to be a common thing.
I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
We just wanted to clarify, when we were doing this project, we weren't trying to conclude that there was a positive or a negative, that this was positive or negative. It's just merely to highlight that this is an aspect in modern day higher education. It's not just a governmental change, but also a cultural one. This is increased across all domains in society, not just in universities.
May I add something to what you said?
Yes, of course.
Federico, still, this is what we do in modern languages. We don't teach only language. We try to teach you how to, to approach cultural contents, different contents, cultural, values, ideas. And so through language, also through the discourse analysis, we can have a better, understanding of what is going on here, not just in this institution, but in general in the world outside. So this is what we do with languages. We teach languages, but we also teach how to investigate the world through languages. And I think that's very important.
Yes, definitely. I think that's an important quality to highlight to students, and to have that ability to understand these elements. We would love to know if you do think this change is good or bad, though. We don't want to say that this is one way or the other, but we'd love to know if it is or not.
Because is it possible, really, to argue that this change is good or bad? Do you think it should be prevented, that traditional values should be maintained, or do you think that universities need to respond to modern-day needs in order to stay relevant? It's quite a blurry area. It's not positive or negative, but do you think this can be positive or negative? Do you think change is just change? Maybe now we should talk about what we think anyway. So Teya, do you think about the whole everything we've spoken about, really?
the whole lot. I think that it makes sense that universities need to respond to modern changes, that there's no point trying to refuse them, otherwise universities will just be excluded. However, I do think that they should keep the traditional elements, that university still needs to remain a university and you should be there to learn, and it shouldn't be turned into just a business and you are a customer. So that would be my view. However, I know other people disagree with me. I know there was a business student within the module who actually argued that it was a good thing, that he thought that business, why wouldn't this be a good thing? He wants to be able to, he wants this for his future, he wants to be able to go on to the world of work, and he thought that universities being more relevant to the world of work was necessary and positive. So it's that people have very different views. Sarah, what was your view on the matter?
I think similar, obviously. I mean, we're both language students, so we're going to have quite similar opinions. We've studied this together. I think universities do need to keep up, obviously, or students aren't going to want to come to university anymore. But I think you can't deny the fact that a university is there. It was created in the first place. It was there to teach. And therefore, teaching is always going to be important. You can't forget it. Any university that prioritises business over teaching and excellence is also not going to get anywhere. They need everything, really, which is what's come out of this. Students want everything they can get from a university.
So basically, we become more demanding. That's what has happened.
And I think at £9,000 a year, you can probably be that demanding.
You can probably be more demanding.
That demanding. Before we sum up now, I just want to say, Federico, again, have you got anything else you wanted to say? Given you are our module convener, that you are an academic on this, in this subject, if there's anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, not that much. I mean, of course, I've got my opinions about this topic, but I really like your way of presenting the topic. So you analyze material and text. You told us what you have done with this text, so looking for keywords, key terms, and also the sort of ideological, stuff you got behind this, and also the discourse that you got behind this. And then you try to involve other people in your investigation, asking them, what do you think? What's your perception about this discourse? Do you agree or not? Or maybe, are you attracted by these keywords or not? And the question is still open, yeah, because maybe we would need more people on board. We would need a better, more time, to develop this kind of investigation. But I think that we open a debate that is very important. It's very relevant, not just to us, from Language and Power, from my module, from our module, but also to all the people that work and study in this place, because we are a community, an intellectual community, and I think it's very good to share these kind of, opinions and discussions among us.
Okay, we've got, sorry to jump in, but we've got 2 more shout-outs here, a couple of questions. We've got our first one from BB, who has said, do you think the government thinks students only care about value for money, or is it the parents? Which is very interesting, because parents is one thing we haven't mentioned. So, yes, this is something that we need to think about. I think parents, they do have a say, because they bring you to your open days. They're the ones that are helping you make your decisions. A lot of the time they are financially supporting you. So the parents, maybe they do care about value for money, but I think that's quite a personal thing that maybe you have to think about on a personal level.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation with that one, but I think that is important, particularly if your parents are helping you finance the degree. They're going to ask what you want out of it, and unfortunately, it may not always be the case that simply to learn is going to help make them spend the thousands.
Yeah, it might not be enough. Or
and
just to have fun, maybe to them isn't quite enough.
It may not be enough. So yeah, maybe they influence that a student feels they have to make sure they're going to get a job out of it, otherwise they're wasting money. And I think that is something that maybe people do consider. And I think the government maybe have also played a part. I think seeing the prospectuses and seeing things like that. If institutions are changing but students may not be changing, it shows how other factors are creating a role for us. They are saying, oh, you need value for money, and it's not always the case, maybe.
Yeah, so the government, you're right in that. You think the government thinks students only care about value for money, and maybe it's like a double-edged sword. The government thinks that students only care about value for money, so they promote that value for money, and then students do think about that. So they are all interlinked together. And
Also, what is value for money? For some person, it might be, I want the best professor you can get in the country. For someone else, it might be, I want the highest career I can get out of
the best accommodation I can live in for that 3 years.
So what's the value for money?
Yeah, it's definitely something for us all to think about, really, especially for those who are coming to university.
If I may sum up, this is what discourse does. It's not just describing the reality or the real world, but it's shaping your views about this real world. So what is the starting point? I mean, someone telling you that value for money is important, so maybe this is shaping your opinion, your views on this, and you think that value for money is important because that is the discourse we got right now. But maybe your views can be different, in another kind of context, in another kind of discourse.
Well, I think it shows in itself how language and power are related, because the language used by the universities or by other bodies are influencing what people actually come to university for in themselves without their own opinion. So I think it has shown that.
So we've got another question now, the second one from Laura. Thank you for texting in, for shouting out. How much should employers' demands be reflected in degree courses? Are you then going to be a hostage to your planned career? Again,
I like that. Yeah. I really like
that.
Good question. I think it's great though, because what if you change your mind on what career you want?
It's a big decision when you come to university what degree you do, because you think you're deciding on your career then, but you might have changed your mind by the time you come out of your degree, what career you're going to be doing. I think it should be flexible. I think there are so many employers out there, maybe their demands should be reflected in the degree, but there's a lot of employers out there. How are you going to reflect?
Which ones do you reflect?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you may be a hostage to your planned career, but sometimes it's not as clear-cut as that. It's always possible to change, and you'll always pick up qualities from your degree that you can transfer. I mean, that's what, like Federico said, it's important to give students all kinds of skills when they come to university that they can attune to a different career, maybe.
Yeah. And maybe even the skill, to be on air with a radio program, be appreciated by employers in the future. We'll
let you know.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, we're graduating this year, so it's a good question for us, really.
We're going to radio DJs.
So thank you for your questions. Now maybe we should start concluding.
Yes. Well, we've shared the concept of enterprise culture and institutional discourse in relation to universities. We've given our own opinions and had a nice debate here, and we hope this has given you some ideas on how to reflect on your own experience. You are more than welcome to get in touch with us even after the show, and we'd love to hear any contributions you have on the topic generally. And thank you again for those that have texted in. We really appreciate your questions and input. So thank you.
We'd also just like feedback really on what you think about how we've done here today, what you think of our project, what you think of how we've presented it. Anything is helpful. So just because we're finishing now, you can still get in touch via the Junction 11 Twitter, Facebook, or via text on 07766404142. Start your message with Junction 11, and then it'll get to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
And
thank you,
goodbye.
Federico, for
thank you, Teya and Sarah. It was a wonderful program, and I hope we will get more feedback and comments and opinions. By the way, you could also post your comments on our blog. Our module's got a blog on WordPress, and the blog is called Language and Power. So please do send
we've been
your comments
contributing
and
towards that
your
throughout the
ideas.
year. So anything external would be great as well. Feedback on our blog. Yeah.
And have a nice weekend.
enjoy your weekend.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.